Good morning, and it is a great Tuesday morning, and we welcome you to another edition of the Kitchings Table. I'm your host, Earl Kitchings, and joining me as always, my co-host, Miss Ronline Cannady. Good morning, Ronline.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Joining me as
Well,
always, my it's a lot going on today's show, so I'm not going to waste 1 second because we got a lot to cover. But before I do that, I want to send out two special messages. Number one, I would like to uh, send up prayers to the community of Wynert, Georgia, and Appalachia High School as they continue to deal with the very sad situation of uh, two students and two teachers being killed at that high school. We pray for the community, we pray for the school, we pray for the administrators, and most importantly, we pray for the children that they will get relief, be strengthened, and resolve in this incident that happened. It's sad, and we continue to play games with the gun control, gun efforts to minimize such things. We can ban books, but we can't ban assault weapons. That should be the mantra that a lot of people should say. We can ban books. We can ban you teaching children historical facts and data, but you won't ban something that will take them out of school. And you know it's very difficult when a parent sends their child to school and before the end of the day, they get that call and say, your child won't ever be coming home again. So our prayers go with them. And of course, definitely have to acknowledge the fact that one of the greatest uh, actors of all time uh, left us yesterday. I don't think there'll ever be another James Earl Jones. Uh, his voice, his acting, the roles he played, who he was just a very dynamic and powerful person. And if you've never saw the movie The Great White Hope, which was his first shot at being on film after he had done that particular story about the great heavyweight boxer Jack Johnson when he did it on Broadway, you should go back and look at James Earl Jones in his early days, in his very early days, and just see how passionate and how great of an actor he was. So our prayers go out to his family, and we know that uh, Broadway up in heaven is dancing today because the voice that we're so familiar with from just one character, never saw the face. Well, we did see the face in one of the episodes of Star Wars, but before you ever saw the face, you heard the voice, and he was the voice of Darth Vader. So rest in peace, Mr. Jones. So today, Ronline, I want to open up with a quote or a response, might be a better way. But this is what was said after a very, very, very serious tragedy of a mother losing her son. And I quote, let the people see what they did to my boy. Let the people see what they did to my boy. That statement, that sentence came from Mamie Teal Mobley, the mother of Emmett Till, the young black boy who was not just killed, he was defiled, defamed. He was just totally, what they did to him uh, goes beyond inhumanity. And not only was he killed and the people who killed him exonerated, but yet they were found to have done this after they had been exonerated. The tragedy of Emmett Till lives. I have yet to see the movie Till, the movie about Emmett Till, but the line his mother said when it was time for the funeral. Let the people, let the people see what they did to my boy. And it was a horrible, they've shown pictures of it. It was horrible. So anyway, our topic for today, wrongful incarceration. Wrongful incarceration. And I bring this to you today because after seeing a couple of news stories talk about Black men in particular who have wrongfully been incarcerated and have spent decades, years, hours, seconds in prison for something they did not commit, did not do, did not have anything to do with, wasn't even there. Wrongful incarceration takes a traumatic toll. So we got a lot to unpack today. So I hope I can get to most of it because, man, we need to pay more attention to this. So now, let's talk about the word conviction, Ronline. Conviction. Not the conviction you have when you have passion for something, but the conviction when you get convicted in a court of law. When they have the trial and they pass down the sentence, the conviction. The sentencing comes when you come back to the judge and he tells you how much time you're going to do, if you're going to do any time. And whether it's going to be probated time, probation, full time, the biggest time is life. And it makes me think about the movie Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence did called Life, but that's what the judge sentenced them to, life. Mm-hmm. But conviction, classified as wrongful for two reasons. The person convicted is factually innocent of the charges. I mean, there are no facts to convict the person, just none. There's nothing there. Or there were procedural errors. Procedural errors. Now, procedural errors happen between the police and the prosecuting attorneys. Somewhere in there, procedural errors. So when you hear about people getting off because there was a technicality, well, technicality is one thing. Procedural errors is a little bit different. But a conviction is wrongful when procedural errors violate the convicted person's rights. Mm-hmm. And I've said this many times on this show, liberty and justice for all.
Yes, for all.
Okay? So that's what a wrongful conviction is hinged upon. Two things. Factual innocence of the charges or procedural errors that violated a person's rights. So, although these two words have a very, very, very fine line between them, in math, the difference between 1 and 2, if you take an algebra, is 10 numbers between those two numbers. Mm-hmm. On that number line, right?
Correct.
And to make it clearer, in track, or when you're doing something that relates to speed, there are those numbers in between the numbers. Mm-hmm. Right? So 1/10 of a second, 2/10 of a second, 3/10 of a second, 4/10 of a second, on and on and on and on. So when we talk about incarceration and imprisonment, So I'm going to start with imprisonment first because It's the less heavy of the two. Imprisonment specifically refers to being confined in a prison or penitentiary as a result of a legal judgment or punishment for a crime. Being confined in a prison or penitentiary as a result of a legal judgment or punishment for a crime. But I was wrongfully convicted. Well, we got to imprison you until they figure out what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we got to imprison you. So okay, you got to be confined. Okay, they say in prison. Incarceration.
Mm-hmm.
Say that's the broader of all forms of confinement. Confinement. And we always hear people talking about, well, think outside the box. In confinement, you're in the box. You're in the box. For those of us who may be Rick James fans, Rick James called that an L7. Call that L7. Okay.
L7 square.
Okay. And that you're in that L7, you're in that box.
Uh-huh.
But incarceration defines all forms of confinement, including prison, jail, detention centers, and other correctional facilities. A correctional facility. What is that really supposed to do to somebody? A correctional facility. You're going to correct me? I misspoke. You're going to correct me? I said something I shouldn't have said. You're going to correct me? That's where I go to get corrected? That's what a correctional facility is? Oh, you're going to correct me for the crimes I committed? So y'all going to help correct me? Correctional facility. I love it. I know y'all like, this guy here comes up with some of the most intriguing things to say or correlate. So incarceration and imprisonment in general is being deprived of freedom and restricted to a confined space. Liberty and justice. If you got liberty, then there should be freedom. If you have freedom, you should have liberty. Because it goes on to say that both terms involve the loss of liberty. I don't make this stuff up.
Mm-mm. Can't make it up.
I just put it in the context to hopefully open eyes and give you a foundation as to where to start from. But both terms involve the loss of liberty. Imprisonment has a broader scope encompassing various forms of confinement. Okay? All this has to do with criminal justice. Criminal justice and the correctional facilities. Liberty and justice, not criminal justice, mind you, liberty and justice, fair justice, equal justice, righteous justice. And we've seen so many times as it relates, and this is, you can spin it however you want to, but the truth is the truth. Black men have a hard time sometimes getting justice.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely have been on the wrong end of wrongful incarceration, wrongful convictions. No facts, but you sent me to jail anyway. You don't have one fact, one shred. You say the prosecution has to prove the case. Let me tell you, they got some things, and I'm gonna cite some of those. But the next thing, Ronline, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, racial disparities in diversion. You familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, mind you, my co-host has worked in the legal field in a law office, so she's familiar with these things. So I don't have to, prep her or prompt her. She already knows. But for our viewers and listeners, diversion works reducing harmful outcomes and increasing access to social services. Studies also suggest that diversion is routinely, okay, let me go back. Diversion works, reducing harmful outcomes and increasing access to social services. Reducing harmful outcomes, reducing wrongful convictions. That's a harmful outcome. I don't care if it's for an hour. And trust me, Ronline, I don't want to be nowhere near that place where those doors slam, those bars, that sound, no. No, you know why the cage bird sings?
Because I want to get out. It's ready to go. Like free
You know
me.
what a caged bird has been accused of?
What has it been accused of? Not
Wrongful
wanting to leave.
conviction.
Yeah, not wanting to get.
The bird did not ask to be in the cage,
No.
but you put him in the cage anyway because you want to look at him every day. So anyway, let me finish. Let me finish this. This is just too good to take.
I'm thinking about my grand dog when I had him, when you crate him. And he's looking up at you like, what did I do to you to deserve this?
What's this for? What did I do? What did I do?
Mm-hmm.
You've been wrongfully convicted, dog, bird,
Yes.
whatever. So you got to go in the cage.
You gotta go.
I didn't do nothing. You've been wrongfully convicted. That's what I'm saying. So I have to imprison you, confine you until I want to let you out.
Time to eat.
Like a good dog, they'll lay there until it's time.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing that a dog don't bite you when they come out of that cage. So anyway, let me continue with racial disparities and diversion. Studies also suggest diversion is routinely denied to people of color, sending them deeper into the criminal legal system. Okay, this comes from prisonpolicy.org. The research reminds practitioners that most diversion programs aren't designed around racial equity. It's not set up for people of racial complexions, color. It's not set up for you. You're not supposed to get any diversion. You're supposed to be wrongfully convicted, confined, incarcerated, and imprisoned with time. Time. So, the eligibility for diversion programs, again, disproportionately made for those people of color. The criteria disproportionately excludes Black people who are arrested as youth, stopped by police generally, and jailed and imprisoned at higher rates than any other racial or ethnic group in the United States. More than any other racial or ethnic group in the United States. First, there was slavery. Now there's incarceration. The disparity just changed slightly. A recent study found that a Jacksonville, Florida diversion program, required a third-degree nonviolent felony charge and no more than one prior conviction for a nonviolent misdemeanor. That's what a diversion program required, a third-degree nonviolent felony charge. Okay. Now, I want you to pay attention to this, because whenever you are arrested, before you say anything, tell them you want a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Because in pleading guilty, or, to get that plea deal, if you plead guilty, an individual signs away their right to any further due process and faces immediate, right now. No, we're not waiting till tomorrow. We're talking about right now. We're going to do it right now. Immediate sentencing if they're terminated from their diversion program. While these post-plea diversions, sometimes called deferred adjudications, may be convenient for a prosecutor
Mm-hmm.
who wouldn't have to take further action on the person's case, it's unjust.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say unjust ICE.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get that, Ronline?
I did.
Unjust ICE.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, for those of you who didn't get that,
put it together.
I got to put it together for you. Unjust ICE.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why is he talking about ICE? Unjust ICE.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's unjust to force someone into this high stakes situation just to receive social services. It's unjust. So we talk about diversion, incarceration, imprisonment, wrongful conviction. I would like to read to you how. This is just excerpts from one particular case. How wrongful conviction affects a person's life, their family. Not for a minute, an hour, a second, a day, a week, a month, a year, years, and sometimes a lifetime. Because the reason why I'm bringing this to us today, Ronline, because when I saw a report about a Black man who had been released from prison, but when he was wrongfully convicted for a crime he did not do, and he said from the time they sent him to prison till he got out, I'm innocent. I did not do this.
Mm-hmm.
He never gave in. After 37 years, they found that he was innocent. They went back and evidence and everything else, they found that he was innocent. 37 years. He has a son. His son is 37 years old. Imagine being out of that boy's life, young man's life, man's life. I'm saying it those three ways: boy, young man, man, for 37 years. My dad taught me how to ride a bicycle. My dad taught me how to go fishing. My dad used to play catch with me. My dad taught me how to tie a tie. "37 years. Oh, and the justice system will say, oh, as we say in today's vernacular, my bad. 37 years. So anyway, let me read this before we get to the break. So this is a statement used in a wrongful conviction. Black man was said to have committed a crime. The investigation stalled in trying to figure out what was going on. A month later, the police were at the home of a man on an unrelated matter. I'm not going to call any names. They showed the sketch to the sister of this man in this unrelated matter. Unrelated. And she said, it looked like my brother's friend, who was 19 years old at the time. It looks like my brother's friend. Looks like. She didn't say, oh, that's my brother's friend. It looked like him. After obtaining a photograph of who she said looked like her brother's friend, they created a photo array. A photo array. And a photo array would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pictures in a collage together to show the ID of this person. While the police did not tell her that a potential suspect was in the array, she assumed that was the case. She picked out this 19-year-old assailant, later recalling that she was not emphatic about her identification at the time, but rather that if I had to pick one of those photos as that person that raped me, that would be the person. Not the exact person, that looks like the person. Oh, that's all we needed. Because see, the black man must have raped this white woman, because she said, oh, if I got to pick a picture, yeah, that's the one. So this person filed a petition for a writ of actual innocence. And a writ of actual innocence is a post-conviction remedy that can be filed by a person who has been convicted of a crime and sentenced. It is claimed that the person is actually innocent of the crime they have been convicted of. The writ is filed based on newly discovered evidence that proves their innocence. So this guy filed this writ of innocence with the Virginia Supreme Court in 2017. 2017. After he had been sentenced in 1975. He was convicted in 1975. He filed this writ in 2017. The state opposed the motion. Oh, no. We're not going to allow that. It argued that the gentleman hadn't proved his innocence. Either the police grabbed the wrong pair of jeans for testing. This goes back to that thing I said about getting the wrong information. Mm-hmm. Or the jeans were the right jeans, but the semen stains found weren't from the attack, but from some other event, such as contamination as a result of laundering. So you have evidence, but the evidence is contaminated, or it wasn't the right pair. But this man has been in prison since 1975. Contaminated evidence. Well, once it gets contaminated, oh yeah, but it's 2017. Y'all just now found out it was contaminated? What? Wow. Who was the prosecutor on that case? Because they should be fired.
Yes. They're retired by now. They're retired.
Man, those jeans there, wow. Some old jeans. I mean, old jeans. Those are almost some 40-year-old jeans, right? But anyway, in April 2020, the governor of Virginia signed legislation awarding the gentleman $159,535 in compensation for 25 years of, which one would it be, Ronline, imprisonment or incarceration?
Incarceration. He couldn't do anything. He was in that L7 square. Couldn't do nothing. Correction. Couldn't do anything. Couldn't do anything. Yeah.
But
outside of those walls.
But he finally filed that writ of actual innocence. and it got him out of prison. So $159,535 comes out to, over those 25 years, $6,381.40 per year. 1975, 2017. So I did some math. I looked up what the average hourly wage was between 1975 and 2017, which from 210 to 775. So I did an average. On an average, that would be $4.67, $4.68 hourly wage, right? On an average. For a 40-hour work week, right? For a 40-hour work week, for a year, that person would have made $9,724 if all they earned was $4.67 per hour, per day, per week, per month, for the year, $9,724 times 25 years came out to be $243,100, a difference of $83,565. So even though he got that amount, they still shorted him $83,000. If he had worked and done. Okay, so let's just say he didn't work the whole time. Okay, so y'all paid him, but the amount of money has nothing to do with time. This is the Kitchings table. Every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, you can catch us and get some knowledge, some wisdom, some information, be entertained. Whatever you want to umbrella it as, that's who we are, because that's what we do here at the Kitchings table. I'm your host, W. Earl Kitchings. Joining me, my co-host, Ms. Ronline Cannady. And excuse her for breaking out in laughter at times, but she gets it right away, and she can't help but go like, wow. So anyway, our topic today is wrongful incarceration. I'm going to go back to my opening line that started from Miss Mamie Till Mobley. Let the people see what they did to my boy. And I say that for every wrongfully convicted Black man who has been imprisoned, incarcerated from 1 to 44 years or longer. Let the people see what they did to my boy. Because it wasn't just about an Emmett Till who was disfigured. His face was disfigured. That's why she told him, let the people see what they did to him. It was bad enough they killed him because he made a whistle or made a comment to a white woman in Mississippi when he did this. Oh no, they killed him and disfigured him. Right? So the writ of innocence. What about this term, chain of custody? Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Ronline? Why am I asking her? She knows.
Yes. And this is
chain
where
of custody. Huh?
And this is where you're talking about anything can go wrong. You're at the mercy of the court.
Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what they say in France. They say merci.
Okay. Yes.
I need some merci, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm. 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 And I don't need just going on the ice either. I need some action to happen here. Get me up out of here.
Get me up out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I need some just and ice.
Mm-hmm.
Chain of custody is a legal term that refers to the order and manner in which physical or electronic evidence in criminal and civil investigations has been handled. It involves maintaining a detailed log showing who collected, handled, transferred, or analyzed evidence during an investigation. Tampered evidence, contaminated evidence. Somebody dropped the ball and it's been contaminated.
Mm-hmm. Broke the seal.
Wow. We can't find, now for the prosecutors, that's when they get really upset. We can't find the evidence. What you mean you can't? or when the judge said that evidence been tampered. Oh,
Mm.
what? But anyway, so that speaks to that. I want to give you a number. There's an organization called the Innocent Project, and they work to free innocent, prevent wrongful convictions, and create fair, compassionate, and equitable systems of justice for everyone. Since 1989, Ronline, since 1989, there have been 3,400 exonerations, according to the National Registry of Exonerations. 3,400 exonerations. So we're approaching almost 40 years. In 2029, it'll be 40 years. So we're right at about 25 years of exonerations being tracked, being documented. 3,400. So that's, a little bit over 100 a year, which is a good thing. The Innocent Project, founded in 1982 by two visionary attorneys, Peter Newfield and Barry Scheck, has been at the forefront of criminal justice reform using DNA and other scientific advances to prove unwrongful conviction. Now, here's some numbers for you number crunchers. 27 is the average age when a person is wrongly convicted. 27. What were we doing? What were you doing at the age of 27 in your life? Do you remember? Do you know? Do you know? Do you know?
I was busy being a parent, getting him back and forth to school, being that taxi cab driver, which is now a luxury Uber.
Okay. So
Going back
27.
and forth with the work, yes, and trying to pay that
Okay.
mortgage.
So while you were doing that, somebody was being wrongfully convicted
Mm-hmm.
at those same ages. 44 is the average age when a person is exonerated. The average age. The average age. That's 17 years of incarceration for something I didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Time. 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 24 hours in a day. Times a week, times a month, times a year, times 17 years. How much time in an L7 where you're told what to do, what to wear, where to go, what you can do? Time. And for all those men who have served time and been exonerated for something they didn't do, for all those men who continue to serve time for something they did not do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? For convicted felons who run around this country convicted of multiple felons and still have not served any time because they're busy trying to be in charge of the country. You get a pass. 74 is the estimated number of exonerees who have not received compensation, that $159,000, for wrongful convictions. 14 states do not have a compensation law at all.
Mm.
Out of the 50 states, only 36 compensate. We don't know, and I didn't look to find out how equitable that is, but 14 states don't offer. So the Innocent Project is out there working to do that. July 1955, Emmett Till turned 14. He would have been 79 this year. He was accused and convicted. 2 white men accused of his murder were later found not guilty by an all-white, all-male jury. 4 months after the trial, which took place in a segregated courtroom, the 2 men admitted, they boasted. I'm going to take it further than that. They boasted about kidnapping and murdering Till in an interview with Look magazine. That was a national magazine back in the day. But because they had already been acquitted, they could not be tried again. So when you know how the system works, when you have all the things lined up, you got everything lined up in your pocket. When everything you got is lined up to exonerate you, the judge is on your side, the jury is on your side, everybody's on your side, even though you know you committed a crime.
That reminds me of that
decades later, right? 6 decades later, Ronline, the lady who was supposedly the victim of this, admitted that she had lied and that parts of her accusation, considered mostly incendiary at the time, were untrue. She has never faced any legal consequences for her accusations against Till. Today, Black men are twice as likely to be arrested for a sex offense and 3 times more likely to be accused of rape than white men. This is from a publication called The Appeal. Now, I'm going to pair that with the fact that as I go online on X, they posted pictures of men, white men, and please don't get this twisted or misconstrue this. This is not a racial thing. This is just the facts. As they said back in that police show, Dragnet, just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts, ma'am. When you see men who are supposed to be spiritual leaders in their churches, who are supposed to be teachers of spirituality in their churches, when you see law enforcement officers convicted of sexual abuse, sexual offenses, raping, when you see these white men doing these things to white children or white young people, but yet they don't get the type of time that Black men get many times who are wrongfully convicted. One final story. Purvis Payne, convicted of a 1987 murder of Charisse Christopher and her child in Millington, Tennessee. Here's a young man who is supposed to be, has some intellectual, mental issues. But he was convicted and was supposed to receive the death sentence, but they stayed that. But he is still incarcerated since 1987. 37 years. He's been in prison. 32 years he faced execution. The injustices of what goes on in America based on numbers. And just to be clear, the percentage of Black people in a state compared to white people in a state, it's a big disparity. For instance, in Florida, 15% of the population is Black. 44% or somewhere between 44 and 48% of the prison population is Black. Total population, 14%, but they constitute 44 to 48% of the prison population. How many of those wrongfully convicted? How many of those are there on some misdemeanor charges? Wrongful conviction, incarceration, imprisonment is a fact of life. Most recently, pro football player Tyreek Hill was taken out of his car because they said he was speeding and mishandled, thrown to the ground by 4 police officers who said he was speeding right outside of Hard Rock Stadium where he was going to play a football game on Sunday. He's driving a sports car, so obviously, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter. So anyway, Ronline, I'm gonna let you do your Black History moment before I give us our final thought of the day.
Okay. All right. So does that final thought of the day have to do with that big number?
It does.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to try to make my Black History acknowledgement quick. Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. And I do hope that we take what you brought to us seriously. I need to acknowledge 5 people. You all may know them as the Central 5 or the Exonerated 5. And these are the men that were wrongfully convicted, wrongfully incarcerated for so-called raping a woman in Central Park. Their names are Kevin Richardson, Corey Wise, Raymond Santana Jr., Kevin Richardson, and Yusef Salaam, known as the Central Park 5, the Exonerated 5. I also want to just post really quickly their successes that they have done. They have participated with philanthropy to make sure, and they're participating with the Innocent Project as well. I want us to keep everybody in mind that when you're wrongfully accused of something, we hate to be called liars when we know we're not lying. So to be in the situation to where you're wrongfully convicted, meaning that your freedom has been taken away from you, that you're receiving no justice, that's pretty bad. That's a pretty bad place to be. And I'm going to post where you can find more information. The report that's called Race and Wrongful Convictions that was done in the United States in 2022. Samuel R. Gross, Maurice Posley, Ken Otterbrook, Clara Stevens, Jessica Weinstock Paredes, and Barbara O'Brien for the National Registry of Exonerations for September of 2022. They did a great job of letting us know just how these disparities are in the United States alone. We know that we know that it's bad everywhere, but we're talking about the United States. So just be mindful of the things that you do and the things that you say about your freedom. Don't be so easy to give your freedom up. So that's the end of my time. Come on back, Earl. I'm turning it back over to you.
Thank you, Ronline, for that information and that Black History moment. So I'd like to leave everybody with a number. 4,700. 4,700. According to NAACP records, that is the number of people who have been lynched according to their records over time here in America. So that's only been since that organization has been around, so it hasn't been for a long period. So 4,700. And I'll leave you with this. Let the people see what they did to my boy. Hey, I'm Earl Kitchings, She's Ronline Cannady. Thank you for joining us here on the Kitchings table. As we say every week, go out and do something good for somebody today. Till next Tuesday. Bye-bye.